Here are a few techniques that are going to be very useful in various situations. The thumb count. This will allow you to secretly count a number of cards with the thumb. The deck starts in the dealing position. The thumb can count down and release cards one by one. Here's how it's done. The middle phalange of the forefinger presses down from the bottom as the thumb presses down on the outer end of the cards. So to facilitate the release of the cards, they have to be a little bit beveled. This much will be enough. Press down and 1 card, 2 cards, 3 cards can be released. Just very slowly. 1 card, 2 cards, 3 cards, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now what do you do with these, the cards? Let's say you need to cut 3 cards. The moment the right hand comes on top, you can of course just on the cover of your right hand count them and put them on the table. You might want to transfer the break to some other part of the hand. So here is an efficient way to transfer it to the back, to the inner end. Once you've counted whatever number of cards you need, the left thumb rolls in a little bit, lifts it up, so the cards lift up along the entire left side, like so. The heel of the thumb will come in and press down. So now the break can be held this way. From here, you can just push with the heel and get the break transferred to the little finger. There's a way to transfer the thumb count card directly to the little finger by just pressing with the side of the thumb over like this, blocking the cards, and then you go to the little finger over here. Now, how can the thumb count be covered? Now, one is, but for instance, by looking at the watch, by saying, look very closely, this is going to be very quick, just 5 seconds, and the moment you point to the watch, that's the moment you can easily execute the thumb count. Another way is just to address the spectator furthest to your left. When you turn to him and say, sir, please, you have plenty of cover to execute the thumb count. Yet another way of doing it is display a card in the front and show it, and thereby cover the thumb count. Just go like this. Now here is one of the most deceptive ways of counting a specific number of cards from the top of the deck. It's the little finger count. The little finger count works like this. The little finger counts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever, how many cards you need. That's a little bit a tricky thing. It has nothing to do with force. It's a question of coordination, the ability to move fingers independently. The grip we start in is a traditional dealing position. The left thumb blocks similarly to the peak, yes, this part of the deck. Like again, imagine a nail going through here. Before you start, you can slightly give the deck a slight bridge, but very slight. That's enough. That's enough. Not too much. Not too much. The deck is beveled, but I'm going to exaggerate to make the point in such a way. It's a little bit turned, so it's not beveled as usual, like this or like that or like this. It's beveled by turning it slightly, very slightly clockwise. So we get to this position. The little finger protrudes about half of its size over the inner corner and pulls straight down. Pull straight down. And if you do this correctly, you can release cards one by one. Look at this position. Let me show you this position as well. That part of the forefinger, the base of the forefinger, presses against the underside of the pack. The thumb fixes it, and the forefinger in this position plays an important part too. That's the little finger count. Here is a technique that will allow you to secretly add a small number of cards to another number of cards. Let's say we have the 4 aces and we need to add 3 cards to this packet. Now here's a way to proceed it. The aces are placed onto the pack. The cards spread You spread the aces plus another 3 cards. As the spread is closed, the little finger picks up a break beneath 7 cards. The right hand seizes everything in closed end grip, and as it leaves the left hand, the left thumb just strikes the left side, thus obtaining a sharp edge. Now look at this. If the cards are just normally squared, you will see an extra thickness. Whereas if you stroke it like that, you give it a bevel, exaggerating, you obtain this configuration, a bevel configuration, but not as exaggerated as here. It's just very lightly. Yes, you're perfectly covered from all angles, and still keep the fingers at these angles. Don't do this, otherwise nobody's going to see what you're holding. Keep this. Okay. So that's the Braue addition. Now let me show how to do this in an intelligent way that is really deceptive. The aces are on the table, and you find a way to obtain a break beneath the top 3 cards. So that could be by saying, here are the 4 aces, and of course there are no more on top. There are no more in the deck, and you spread the cards, and as you close the spread, you obtain a break. Now we need to bring these cards on top of the pack. So this is done in several in-transit actions, the explanation of which, a detailed explanation of which you will see in the trick performance section. Here's just an application. Sir, would you please check the 2 red aces, are they okay? How are the black aces? Very good. The right aces were good. Well, I'm very glad. Now, in order to free the right hand to get the black aces, I put them on top of the deck, and so it's a secondary in-transit action necessary to go into the main action. I get these cards and say, and you're very happy too, sir. Thank you very much. And I have to put these on top of the deck, as I'm going to distribute the aces here on the table. And as the right hand goes over the cards in end grip, the thumb go like that in a diagonal upward order. Good. Diagonal direction and upward. The cards above the break are added beneath the aces. Now from the secret edition, we go to the Braue edition packet switch. We manage it the same way. We have a break beneath 3 indifferent cards. The aces have been somehow placed on the pack because we have been saying something. We added the 3 cards, and now we are showing the first card. Peel it off and turn it over. Show the second one. Remember that occasionally to put the thumb, hold it like that. Body language means I have nothing to hide. Remember that this packet needs to be protected by a closed end grip. Turn it over like that. Turn the last one over like that. And now we need to put the 3 indifferent cards and the ace of spades on top. Now it's done in another in-transit action, which requires a main action and the spade card. This is the biggest one. That's where the company puts their brand. Go like that. And now if we redeal the cards on the table, we will have 1 ace and 3 indifferent cards. So that's a very effective technique to switch 1, 2 or 3 cards from a 4-card packet. The multi-table pushover will allow you to secretly push over several cards. Let's start by looking at how to push over 2 cards in one movement. So if you push over a single card, that's what you do. You do a very similar movement to push over 2 cards, only that you retract the thumb a little bit more, which means that when you've pushed over the top card like half an inch or so, part of the thumb will touch the second card from the top, and you can push it over like that. So a double pushover looks like this. Remember that these fingers serve as sensors and as a guide. The middle finger feels the first card and the second card going over it, and the forefinger acts as a sort of guide. So how can we use that? We can use it, for instance, when we spread the card to have a card selected and want to be replaced at a specific position. Let's say we want to have it replaced at 13th from the top. We can spread the cards and have a card selected. As the spectator looks at it and shows it to everybody else, we start spreading the cards and now push the cards in groups of 2, which is exactly the same than what we just did, just repeated. So we do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That looks very natural, but say, sir, please remember your card, of course, and put it back whenever you like. We use the previously explained crocodile technique to helpfully suggest to the spectator that he should put it back exactly there. If he doesn't, we use the same strategy. We just take it out and say, then please don't forget the card, and we put it back exactly where we need it. So another application is as a false count. Let's say we are dealing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards on the table. In reality, we've used the double push-off to deal 6 cards. So here's what we do. We count 1, we count 2, 3. Now after 3, the spectators get accustomed to the action. It's also a triple action of conditioned naturalness. We have really done 3 times, one after the other, what we said we would do. And that's where we look up. At that moment, we execute the double push-off, put down, then go back and put an innocent single card, which confirms what we've done. Later, you will see how you can use the same technique as a basis for a double lift, to show 2 cards as 1, or as the basis of a deceptive second deal, to deal the second card rather than the first card. And of course, the double push-off is a very efficient way to simply obtain a break under the top 2 cards in preparation, for instance, for a double lift. So we push 1, we push 2, then push both back, and in the backward movement, the little finger is inserted. Push 1, push 2, in the backward movement. Of course, this is covered by a gesture, by saying, sir, would you please join me here at the table? That's more than enough to execute this movement. Goes down, goes back. Now, after a while, you will be able to minimize this push-off so that when you push, you practically have 2 cards aligned about the width of the white border. That's the ideal case. But it doesn't matter if it's more, as long as the overall action is natural and unsuspicious. In many applications, you will be required to obtain a break above 1 or 2 or 3 or more cards which rest on the bottom of the deck. For this, we use the buckle technique. Now, here is how it works to obtain, for instance, a break above the bottom 2 cards. The deck is held in normal dealing position. The forefinger goes underneath the deck, like so, and now presses diagonally. Don't press this way, press this way diagonally towards the heel of the thumb. And if you do this very lightly, do this with a very light grip, something will happen, the bottom card will separate. As soon as this separates lightly, you can use the little finger to go down. You wouldn't do it that much, of course, just separate it lightly and just go a little bit more, and you have your little finger break, which you can transfer to the thumb if it is necessary. Now let me show you exactly from the front. The forefinger moves in a diagonal position. Avoid this. You don't want to have a movement towards the left because you're going to have this. Look at the forefinger as a unit. It's not the pad of the forefinger that presses, it's the whole part of this forefinger that presses on the underside of the pack. And that will cause, look, this is an absolutely minimal movement, and still you have a huge, you can even count cards here. You see, I use it to count several cards. So, and you can also use it to obtain a break above 2 cards by simply pushing a little bit further. You have 1, push a little bit further and then pull down, and you have a second card. We can use the buckle of a card to affect a very deceptive switch for a card. So let me show you. I'm going to put the 2 of clubs over here on the table. However, I've been changing it for another card. Now here's what happens. As the right hand comes over the deck to grab it in end grip, the left forefinger uses the cover to buckle the bottom card. So we are obtaining a break above the bottom card with the right thumb. Again, to protect this, you give the deck a little bevel, so you get into this angle rather than that. If you do a good bevel, you even probably, it will be quite invisible for somebody who's looking from the side. Tilt it so you have it there. Which is totally different if you held the card like this. We swing cut the top half into the left hand and use the right hand to show this card. This can be done once or twice, and as we turn it over again, we drop. That's a tip over. Addition is also known as the drop switch. We drop or add the broken card, like this. Now, how can you do it in such a way that we have a good cover? Now, one way of doing is pointing in the gesture of turning it over to a spot on the table. So this will make, try to do this in slow motion for you, go like this and go like this, and it will effectively cover the card, especially from the front, but also from the sides. We can also use it if we have a repetitious action. Let's say we say, we're going to put one card over here, one card over there, and the last card is the 9 is going to be over here. So by using conditioned naturalness, we do it twice in a harmless fashion, and the last time we apply the tip over addition. And you can also drop, of course, several cards. It's very useful, and you will see a very useful application in the performance section, which is Dave's Delight. In many instances, the card will be placed on the table. I already mentioned that, I repeat it. It's very important, whenever possible, whenever you can, put a deck on the table, say something, yes, and then when you need it, only when you need it, grab the pack. Now, if you do this on a padded surface, as I have here, there's usually no problem. What you do if you have a hard surface, one way of doing it is using any kind of object that lies around. For instance, your card case, you put it like that, now it's very easy to pick it up. But here's a wonderful little technique by Howard Schwartzman. You put the deck in a beveled condition, I'm going to exaggerate this a little bit, on the table. If you now hit this corner, all the cards will pop up and you can dig your thumb underneath and just put it up. It's a very elegant way of picking up a deck from a very hard surface. Finally, here's a very practical idea to display a card. Especially if you have a bit of larger audience, you can use the card case and just put the card against the flap like this. Or you can do it like this. Put it inside and put it like that. Especially if you have been producing a card from the inside, a nice way to prolong in time the fact that there has been something to begin with in the card case is to put it in a display like this. And at all times the audience is looking at that. They will remember, oh, the card came out of the box. 52 cards, and I'm going to ask you to stop when I drop the cards like that, and that's going to be the card, your personal card, secret card. Keep it secret from me, okay? So let me go. Say stop whenever it pleases you.
Stop.
Stop, please. Would you like this one or that one?
This one.
Anyone. Good. Go ahead. Look at it, both of you. Remember it, please. And when you're done, please put it back. Thank you very much. Now look, somewhere you put it back somewhere in the center, okay? I'm going to cut once. You say, well, maybe he was lucky and cut it to the top or the bottom. I cut again, you say, well, now maybe it's back in the center. The truth is, I have no idea. Maybe it's near the top, maybe it's near the center, maybe it's somewhere near the bottom. So I'm going to use an assistant card, which tells me, gives me the information what card you have. And let me see. Oh, it tells me your card is a red card. Okay, I'm pretty sure I'm going to put it over here. The next one it's the fourth from the top. A red card and the fourth, because it's a 4, Yes, so I count 1, 2, 3, 4. 100% sure. I bet 50 cents.
I'll take that bet.
Take that bet?
Yeah.
What was your card?
7 of hearts.
Nah, yeah, not the one I showed you, the one you selected at the beginning. The one you...
Yeah, 7 of hearts.
7 of hearts? 50 cents. No, it's okay.
I don't
it's
think
okay.
I have
it's okay.
it.
It's okay. Anyway, yeah. Oh, this one. This one is yes. It was the ace. Yes, because I thought you'd enjoy seeing something with 4 aces.
Jeez.
No.
You really like aces.
Well, they are the best, you know. Well, they only do the best cards for the best spectators. Yes.
Fair enough.
Well, actually, this will allow me to show you something really amazing you probably have never seen before. And we're going to need, let me see, some, well, let me take the kings. Is that okay with you?
Sure.
Sir, with you the kings, I think it's a good choice too.
Yeah, it's
good,
great.
Good. Look, let me see, kings, king of hearts. And, well, actually, you may have a look. The aces are okay? Mm-hmm. Yes. How are the king, John?
They're all there.
You happy with them? Yes. So, 4 kings and 4 aces, which I'm going to give here on the table, here, in 2 piles. Good. So, the aces, you know them by name. There's the 2 red aces, there's diamonds and hearts, and this is club and spades, correct? Yes. Spade is very important. Also with the kings, you know. The other ones maybe are not so important, but the spade is very important. Okay, so the spade guards the kings, and here the aces are guarded by the ace of spades, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Now look, I do this very slowly, very clearly. You look from here, you look from there. Nonetheless, look, I transpose the leader cards, and something happens that the other cards, they have followed, look, because here they have now the 4 kings, and here are, oh, okay, I'm going to challenge myself and do this even more difficult. Yes, it's true. John, say stop whenever it pleases you, when I riffle down like that.
Stop.
Stop. Okay, I'm going to separate here. I'm going to take 1, 2, 3, and just the card that happens to be there. Okay? Now look, even more incredible. 8, haphazardly chosen, right? From the pack. Very slowly. You look. Yes? Yes, you look? Look. Not yet happened. Now it happens. Look. You see? Because look, here you have 1. The ace is over there. But what's over there? I mean, that is something I never understand. How do the eights go there?
I don't know what
That's
you're doing.
crazy.
I mean, that's really crazy.
That was awesome.
Yes. Dave's Delight is Dave Letterman's take on the Partagas a trick plot invented by Joaquin Partagas, a famous Spanish magician of the 19th century. And well, most people will know the plot by the name of Danbury Delusion, associated with one of the greatest sleight of hand artists, who was Charlie Miller. Now, in this particular version, we are using a little setup. It's 4 aces on the bottom of the deck, with a 4 on the 4th position from the bottom. Now you will see that we have already used a similar structure before, which is in the Coué test. Now I have chosen a second trick on purpose to illustrate that the same theme can be treated in many different ways. As the great master Arturo de Ascanio once said, is that you have to go into broadness, but also into depth. It's good to know that we have different phenomena, that we have different effects and plots, yes, to know them all, but it's also important to go in each category, have different versions. This will give us more tools to use, it will give more competence and depth as performers, and ultimately result in a more fascinating presentation, because we are a more interesting personality. So, coming back to the little setup, it's on the bottom. We can again protect it with an extra card if we need to display the card, and get rid of that with a transfer cut, as you've seen in previous explanations. The card is selected. In this particular case, I try to again have the way the card is selected similar to the way it's replaced. I dribble the card, spectator selects a card. In this particular case, let's assume that it is the 4 of hearts. While the spectator are showing the cards, I do a swing cut, more or less in the center, and maintain a break. So I can now dribble the cards to the break and have the spectator's card replaced on top of the lower half. Now the setup goes on top, but in reality you're maintaining a break. So as we have seen in the brake technical section, we put it on top, maintain the little finger brake, bring the deck to elevated dealing position, and keep the brake. Now, a way of controlling it, you can review the presentation, is a verbal strategy, so to speak. What I do is I use a transfer cut, I double cut to the brake, but doing it in 2 times, saying if I cut, well, maybe I was lucky, I put it on top and the bottom. If I cut again, it might go back in the center. Now, the reason I'm doing that is that now I have a motivation to spread the cards, because I need to pick up a brake above the bottom 5 cards. So I do it that way, that I say, well, your card, of course, could be somewhere near the top, it could be back in the center, or it could be somewhere near the bottom. And here we use a technique that we have seen at the very beginning of Card College Volume 1, the little finger and the ring finger in jog, yes, the 6th card from the bottom. So when I push together all the cards and square them in end grip, yes, like this, the right thumb can pick up a brake underneath the in-jog card, and I'm going to hold the brake now above our 5-card setup. Yes? Good. The selection, remember, still on the top. Here we use the Jack Merlin tip-over edition. I swing cut the top half into my left hand, and remember, as I've said in the technical explanation, give it a little tap to create, yes, this bevel that is protecting from the left side the brake. I turn over the spectator's card. Again, as we've seen in the Coué test, it's important to manage the situation in such a way that the spectator doesn't go, ah, that's my card. So it can be done. I'll show you another method with apparent self-confidence, and say, and they don't even leave the time for the spectator to protest. You say the 4. Oh, it tells me it's a heart card. Yes, I'm very sure. Don't say anything, whatever. And here do the tip or addition by pointing to the table. Yes, thus covering the addition, and drop the card in front of the spectator. Now that's apparently the 4 of hearts. In reality, it's our first card from the 5-card setup. It's the ace. Now immediately I turn over the next card, which is the beauty of this slide, the beauty of having added 5 cards. Because when you see that it is, whatever it is, the 4, of course, it's part of our setup, it will reinforce the belief of the spectator that this is really the card he previously saw. So it's a very good part of this handling. I put the card beneath the deck because I don't want the information to misdirect from the climax, and I count 1, 2, 3. Now, a little word on the layout of the cards. As you see, I put this card a little bit in that direction. I put these aces in that direction, and they are working as pointers. They are pointing, sort of as a design of the cards, are pointing to this place. I'm looking here, my body's going in, and here I say, well, that's your card. There's a little play. You can look at the presentation, and eventually I turn it over. So when the climax occurs, yes, it's in this sort of triangle, my look, these cards, that card, and it's a much stronger way to visually emphasize the climax. It's a conceptual idea that can be used in many other tricks, just by the way the configuration of the cards is being laid out. Now, the same problem that we have talked about in Voila 4 Aces is that I don't want the revelation of the aces to be part of this trick, because this trick in itself is it's a wonderful trick. It's a very strong plot, yes, for the lay audience. So I wait, I don't do anything, and many times, the spectator will go there and turn over this card. So I wait again, this is part still of that trick, and then say something like whatever suits the construction of the routine, whatever trick you're going to perform afterwards, and say, oh, and by the way, I would like to show you my favorite illusion using just the 4 aces. A transfer excelsior is my take on Irv Weiner's triple transposition. Before I get to the technical explanation of it, let me just spend a few words on a very important concept that I think makes for great, elegant card magic. And it's the concept of in-transit action. Arturo de Ascanio, one of the great geniuses in card magic of the 20th century, he formulated that, and I'm going to explain just briefly. In-transit actions are secondary actions that are necessary to lead into main actions. So let me make an example. Let's say I'm at a party, and the host says, "Oh, Roberto, please shake hands with my friend Fred." And I see Fred and say, "Oh, hi Fred, how are you doing?" "Good, very nice, you enjoying the party?" "Good." Now, if you're an outsider and you're asked to tell somebody else what you just saw, you would say, "Well, Roberto Giobbi met Fred and they shook hands." Because that's the actions that are necessary to transfer the information to somebody else. Now, something very similar happens in a sentence. In a sentence, you have nouns and verbs. They are usually enough to understand what the sentence is about. Then you have adjectives and adverbs that are a little bit less important. Then you have adverbs, you have pronouns and conjunctions, and they are even less important, like punctuation. They're just there to make the sentence elegant. Now, in the action I did with shaking hands, you might have missed an important thing, which was that I was holding the deck in my right hand and transferred it to the left hand, because it was a secondary in-transit action. It was in transit of the main action, which was necessary, to shake hand. Not only did you probably misremember that, you probably didn't even see that I turned over the pack in the action. So the in-transit actions says, the law of the in-transit action says, put the trick action where the sleight of hand takes place in the in-transit action. So at the moment the spectator look at the whole action, they first won't see the action, or at least they will notice it less. But also in the reconstruction phase, which always follows the experience of the effect, you have the climax, and then you have a little reconstruction phase when people think, "Oh, how did he do that?" You don't need to remember the in-transit action, and you just can rethink what happened by remembering the main actions. So let's see how this concept is being applied in this next effect I'm going to explain to you. Now, what we need are the four aces, and you might want to do this at the end of a four-ace production, like we've seen in Dave's Delight, for instance, or Voila, four aces. And you need another four cards, a set of four of a kind. In this case, I'm going to use the kings. Now again, we can take out the kings just from the deck and go into Transfer Excelsior, or use another trick to produce the kings. So I leave this entirely up to you. And another little preparation is required, and it consists in a third set of four of a kind being placed on top of the balance. So I'm going to take this particular case, the eights. Now let's see how we can apply the in-transit actions here, because I'm going to need to put the aces on the kings and all 8 cards on top, steal the top 3 cards, yes, and do the Braue addition move. So let me proceed and show it. I say the 4 aces, and I can have a spectator look at them. Maybe I give these to look at them. I take the kings back, and I say, "How are the kings? Is okay?" And then I ask the spectator, "May I have the aces back?" Now, in order to get them back, my hand is occupied. So I will put the kings in transit on top of the deck. Now, on top of the deck, I already have a break beneath the top 3 cards, which are the 3 8s. I'm going to add to the kings. So I see the aces. How are the aces? Now I need to have another in-transit action to put the aces on the kings. So I say I'm going to put these here on the table, here and here. You see how instead of just taking the cards and putting them on the deck because I need it for the method, I found a way around it and elegantly created 2 in-transit actions to put the 8 cards. Now they are on the top. Now I'm going to add the cards in the next in-transit action. I'm going to put the finger on top, elevate everything to sort of fingertip dealing position like that. And in the action, which is the main action, in transit, the 3 indifferent cards are picked up. So we have now in the right hand 4 and 4 and 3. Okay? So here's where the Brownie addition move comes in. I show 1, 2, 3 and the ace of spades, which I emphasize, and do exactly the same thing, 1, 2, 3, and put the king on top as an in-transit action because the main action is pointing to it. Yes, and that's the last one. And I go from left to right, easy to remember because we read from the left to the right. So I say with the king of spades, the kings, and with the ace of spades. There's a little discrepancy here because the first card should be an ace, but if it's done in rhythm, yes, you pick up again what you said before, and it will make sense because the final image, yes, coincides with the way you say it. So here is the effect. I do have at the present moment the 3 aces on top, followed by the last, the 4th 8, which in reality, yes, belongs to the 3 8s over here, and over here we have the kings. So we're almost set to make the rest automatic. The only thing I do is I want to bring this stock to the center of the balance. I do this by chopping off about half the pack, in jogging the next card and shuffling off, and I leave the balance in this configuration on the table. Now, the transposition. To make this very clear, here is how I recommend doing it. I will exchange the cards and leave the hands crossed. Yes, so the audience can remember that the crossing happened, and then, yes, symbolize, so to speak, yes, the transposition by uncrossing the hands. Immediately, I turn over the kings, which is a first effect. I start the action, yes? Like you've seen in the false swing cut, the action, the actio interruptus, I almost start turning them over, and I think, no, I'm going to make this even more difficult, challenge myself, whatever, you know, and thus find a reason to go back to the rest of the cards. Here, in squaring, which is the main action. Again, we have transit actions everywhere, really. In the main action is the squaring, but the in-transit action is pushing the in-jog card in and obtaining a break underneath it. So what I have now is I have the 3 aces below the break, followed by the 4th card belonging to the set, which is already on the table. So I riffle, force it, spectator says stop, I separate at this point, deal 1, 2, 3 cards, which are the 3 aces, and turn apparently a haphazard card, which of course is exactly the card I've prepared before. Now exactly the same thing like here. I cross the arms as I transpose the leader cards, uncross them to show the invisible travel, turn over 1, 2, 3 aces. And now, well, you might want to think about this problem yourself. How are you going to disclose the eights? There are different ways to do that. Well, you can review the presentation part where I perform this effect and see how I do that. Yes, where I say, oh, and it's always the 4 8s, which of course is an amazing thing because these cards came out of the center, and how could these be, you know, the 4 of the cards from a apparently haphazardly chosen card? The Hindu shuffle looks like this, and this is the way many people would shuffle cards in Asia. You will also see variations that look like that. And it is basically like an overhand shuffle, just small packets being chopped off, just in this position. Now it's a very versatile shuffle, and we're going to look at various applications in it. Now first of all, the normal Hindu shuffle. Here is the right hand grip, 2 fingers and the thumb holding it at an angle of about 45 degrees. The left hand comes over and takes the deck in about elevated dealing position, pulls off a few cards and drops them into dealing position. Go back, take a few cards, pull them off, drop them, and so on until all the cards are used up. Remember to have the forefinger here at the outer end, because otherwise you're going to drop the cards on the floor. So, having looked at that, let's see a few applications of the Hindu shuffle. The Hindu shuffle is a wonderful way to glimpse the bottom card, because while we are shuffling the cards, we can interrupt at any time. Just give it a little tap at the inner end, obviously squaring the cards, and thereby getting a glimpse of the bottom card. So let me turn over so you can see this very nicely. Like this. So the way to use that is shuffle off, glimpse the card, shuffle until I have a small little packet left, drop it on top but maintain a break. Then cut. Either double cut in the hand, cut the packet on the table, or restart another Hindu shuffle by pulling off first the packet above the break. Either way will deliver the cited card on the bottom of the card, and that can be used in manifold ways in subsequent card effects. Another very useful way for the Hindu shuffle is for a key card placement. Actually can be done right after a card has been cited. So let's assume we ask a spectator to select the card by saying stop. Sir, please say stop whenever you like. And we, in the process, we do the glimpse. So we know the key card is the 10 of spades. Spectator takes the card. Let's assume it's going to be the Queen of diamonds. While the spectator shows the card around, we finish the shuffle, drop the packet on top, maintain the break, cut to the bottom, so we are back here. We restart a Hindu shuffle until the spectator calls stop. He will replace the card on top. Now we can either drop the right-hand packet directly on top, thus bringing the key card on top of selection. Or we go in a little bit more subtle way. Apparently, we continue the shuffle, but in reality, we're pulling off the bottom few cards. It doesn't matter if it's one card, several cards, and here is how it's done. The thumb and the middle finger, they form configuration like this, yes? So that when you lower the right packet, at some point the fingers will touch the sides of the bottom few cards, and that's enough to just pull them off. If you look up at this point, you have a little misdirection, just saying, please don't forget your card. Do the first shuffle movement, then as soon as you've done it, go down and continue the shuffle. That's a very deceptive way of looking at the key card, placing it at the same time. And a further very useful and clever application will be as a force. So let's see how to handle that. Either you start with a card you have to force, so you place it beforehand beneath the deck, or you use the Hindu shuffle glimpse to gain knowledge of the bottom card and bring it back to the bottom. Now starts the procedure. We explain to the spectator, sir, I would like you to say stop whenever I'm going to shuffle the cards like that. And we start the shuffle by pulling off a few cards from the bottom. We look at him, we go back, and immediately show the bottom card as an example. So we say, for instance, if we stop here, you would have the 8 of hearts. Look up again, continue the shuffle, but pull off a few cards from the bottom. Continue for a few more packets, or if you said stop here, it will be the ace of diamonds. Look up again and said, so regardless where you stop, it's going to be each time a different card. Now that's a very deceptive way to get into the Hindu shuffle force. Now you apparently repeat exactly the same procedure. However, you're not pulling off any cards from the bottom, just keeping the bottom card on the bottom. As soon as the spectator says stop, you can show him the card, and that's the force card. Now you can either leave it in the packet and continue the shuffle, or you can ask him to take it out. You can give it to him like so, or let's say you have a different back design you don't want to disclose, you can turn it over like that and deal it on the table. Of course, in this case, you would be seeing the card, so it's important to use this in a trick where this wouldn't matter. Now, still another way to continue at this point, rather than doing either of the things I've just said, is to continue the shuffle by pulling off a few cards from the bottom and say, so you could have stopped me here, and we go back to what we initially used when we started to explain to the spectator how to proceed during the Hindu shuffle to have one selected. That's a very nice way to force a card on the spectator.
Well, let me show you a very special card. I always carry this with me. It has a name. It's called the Magus card. Now, I'm not at liberty to disclose why this is called the Magus card, but as you can see, these are a reproduction, of course, not real, but the reproduction of real hieroglyphics. Mm-hmm. So they are hieroglyphic symbols that were copied, from a wall in a pyramid. Yes, yes, and they were handed over for thousands of years. It's about 2,500 years to generation of magicians. Yes, and I have transferred them to a playing card. At that time, they didn't have playing cards, of course, but I transferred it. So let me show you a curious experiment. I'm going to put it in somewhere in the pack. I don't know exactly where it is, but it's lost somewhere. And I would like you to determine a card. So I'm going to shuffle the cards like that, and you just say stop. Maybe, John, you go and say stop, and we look at the bottom card. So if you say stop a little later, it's going to be another card. If you say stop another line, it's going to be another card. It's all dependent what moment you say stop.
Right.
Good. So please say stop whenever it pleases you.
Stop.
Stop. Good. Now, you see your card? This is a very important card. Good? Mm-hmm. Please remember it. Good. Here it is, somewhere, and somewhere is the Magus card, right? Mm-hmm. So let's see if it can help us bring this experiment to a successful conclusion. Now, actually, the only thing we have to do is follow the instructions. I translate them for you because I don't know. You speak hieroglyphics? No, that's what I thought. So I have studied that. So it says 2/3 of the deck have to be cut over here. That's what this means. I mean, go ahead. Cut 2/3. Yes. Good. And then it says, the bird says, you must turn it over. I mean, it's exactly. Now it says, the way you have to cut half of that. You go and cut over here. Yes? Very good. And it says you have to complete like this. Yes. Mm-hmm. And then the last one says you have to cut wherever you cut, like that. And then, so it says, we can find your card which is hopelessly lost and shuffled into the pack. I don't know, what was your card?
6 of hearts.
6 of hearts?
Mm-hmm.
6 of hearts.
That's incredible.
Well, the Magus card knows. Do you know how it knows?
Well, then I'm impressed with the card.
Well, I mean, this actually means Magus card. There is a translation on the other side, which is, yes, a 6 of hearts, It says, yes.
That's crazy.
And you could have picked any other card, of course.
The Magus card is a very nice application of the Hindu shuffle force. So what we need is a card you can obtain at every magic dealer. It is a normal face card and the back is blank. Now you can paint any kind of symbols that go with the presentation you would like. I mean, I'm always trying to give you a specific presentation as an example. But once you recognize the principles, why it's used in that way, you can of course vary it according to your preferences. So I put some real hieroglyphs. That's very important. Whether you put Chinese characters or African characters, make sure they are authentic characters, because maybe there is somebody in the audience who knows about these things, and then it's going to feel ridiculous if it's just made up. So the only preparation besides that, the card can be introduced at any time in the act, which is very practical. The only preparation is that the card which matches the Magus card is on top of the deck. So here are the mechanics. The presentation you can take by reviewing the performance section. The card goes on the top, and before it goes there, the little finger obtains a break below the top card, and you double undercut or triple undercut the top 2 cards at the bottom. So we end up having the 6 from the deck on the bottom and the Maker's card second from the bottom. Here we go through the procedures we already looked at in the technical section to eventually Hindu shuffle force the 6 on the spectator. Now here we have a very nice synergy, whether we prefer to shuffle, again it doesn't really matter, or leave it as it is. When we spread the deck and identify the location of the Maker's card, by cutting at that spot, we automatically bring the 6 on top. Now, I'd like to draw your attention on how to avoid that the cutting happens in an obvious form. So here's a way of doing it. Separator, flick this a little bit forward, the attention will go with the moving card, and it's just natural to pick up from left to right and put it on top, yes? And so we have cut the pack imperceptibly. Now, the next sequence is a very interesting cut I learned from a wonderful German magician who was one of my inspirational sources in magic when I was a young boy, which was Rolf Andra. Very few people will know him, but he was a very famous professional magician in the 50s, 60s, and 70s in Germany. So Rolf Andra showed me this, and I call it the Chinese cut. In this particular context, of course, it's the hieroglyphics cut. So I apparently, yes, read off the instructions, but let me just explain the cut. For clarity, I'm going to turn over the top card. So 2/3 are being cut over, yes, and the cut completed, but crosswise. Then you ask the next spectator to cut about half of the bottom packet and put it on top crosswise. Then you cut yourself at these and put that on top. And it looks very amusing, and it's practically impossible to follow that it is a false cut. Also because the amusing aspect of the presentation prevents people from thinking about the method. And now, as in the presentation, you could see, I say, and if this all, if this really true, the instructions are really correct, you have cut yourself to the 6 of hearts. And you know how the Maker's card knew? Well, already was there from the very beginning. Well, in just a minute, I would like you to take any card from this pack. However, not face up, because otherwise you would see which one to take, which spoils the whole thing. But you must select it secretly. So, and I'm going to shuffle the cards like that, and when you say stop, that's when I stop, and you are going, actually I'm going to, I think, do another cut, start over again, so you have a choice from the beginning, whenever it pleases you.
Stop.
Stop. Good. You want this card or that card?
This card.
Please. Take it, look at it, both of you look at it. Yes? Make sure you remember it. Very good. May I turn around?
Okay, yes.
Very good. Please put the card back wherever it pleases you. Go ahead. Yes, yes. Somewhere in the middle, and I'm going to put the deck on the table and isolate it with a magic circle. A magic circle only the magician's hand is allowed to penetrate, which is this one. It's my hand. Look, but you look. I take out an imaginary card. Yes? I turn it over, and I put it back. Yes, it's all in the circle of imagination. Mm-hmm. Now let me remove the circle of imagination, put it back here, and something in the world of reality manifests itself. A card has turned over. Yes, the one I turned over. But it's not any card, it's exactly the 5 of clubs, correct?
It's not my
Yes?
card. It's not my card.
Mm-hmm.
It's the 5 of clubs.
No.
Yes, this is the 5 of clubs.
That is the 5 of clubs.
That's what I was saying. Yes. Oh, that's not your card, of course. No, I know, of course. Yes.
Okay.
I have a sense for dramatics. Yes. That's why I got it. Because the 5 tells you something. 5 tells you something.
I don't know what it tells me.
I tell you, I think we have to, from here, count 5 cards. Look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What was your card?
3 of spades.
And the 3 of spades it is. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's it.
So many people say, oh, I wouldn't want to play cards with you. I have no idea why they say that, you know.
Holy smokes.
Voila for Aces is directly from my Card College Leiter book, and it perfectly illustrates the application of a Hindu shuffle. It's the original idea of Al Leach, A Dishonest Mistake, from his booklet Cardmanship. Now we need a very minimal setup. In this case I take the 5 of spades, which we're going to put on the bottom of the deck, followed by the 4 aces in any order. So here is a setup. 4 aces, the reversed 5 of spades, and the remainder of the deck. To protect the setup, I cover it with 1 indifferent card. So that allows me at the beginning to spread the deck like so. And when I pick it up, I just double undercut or triple undercut the bottom cover card to the top. So now the setup is free. The card is selected via the Hindu shuffle. So the degree of freedom of the selection will be exactly the same in the degree of freedom of the replacement. And once the spectator has looked at the card, in our example, it shall be the Jack of Clubs. He replaces it. Rather than dropping the whole packet, I use the same rules we have seen in the Hindu shuffle force. I extract some cards from the bottom, at least the 5 cards, the 5 and the aces. Of course, it's more you can look up at this one, make a little comment, or just do it because it's absolutely invisible to the eye. At this moment, we have the setup directly on top of the selected card. Now, the staging, the presentation, I take out the card, put it back, and I like to use this little gag where I say the 5 of spades, and you know, in a voice, in tone of voice that makes the spectator think I mean their selection, because that justifies that I have the wrong card. Otherwise, it's not so easy to justify the card. You know, if you just spread the deck and you say, oh, there is a 5, I'm going to count 5 cards. That, to me, just doesn't feel right. So create a little humorous situation, and then you say, but the 5 tells us something. Very often, somebody will say, well, you have to count 5 cards. If nobody says that, it doesn't matter. I say it myself. I say, well, it's in Da Vinci Code or whatever. It tells us it's a sign. So at that point, get rid of the 5. Slowly, very clearly, count 1, 2, 3, 4, and I already bring the cards in a configuration that afterwards will allow me to flip them over so to display the 4 aces in one flash and reveal the selected card. Now, this trick is a very nice trick and it will please everybody, but there is a potential problem that is present in all the tricks that have so-called kicker. Yes? You have the revelation of a card or whatever, and then you add something. Because in that particular case, if you look at the structure of the effect, the aces really have nothing to do with the selected card. So in my opinion, it would be wrong to immediately go there and turn over the aces and here are the 4 aces. This spoils the emotion, the final emotion. I think a good way to use the revelation of the aces is like either as a lead-in to the next effect by saying, oh, and by the way, I'd like to show you one of my favorite tricks with the 4 aces. Or, as I use it there, by saying, oh, many people say, I wouldn't want to play cards with you. I have no idea why. So once you recognize the principle, the way of interpreting it, you can find your own way to present that. Here are a few more techniques using the overhand shuffle. First, an overhand shuffle that controls the top stock and the bottom stock at the same time. Here is how it looks. It's one shuffle and the second shuffle, and we are back in the position, 4 kings on the bottom and the 4 aces on top. It's a combination of what we have already looked at in the first chapter on the overhand shuffle. You pull off at least the top stock, in-jog the next card, shuffle off until you have at least the bottom stock in the right hand, drop all the cards except the bottom few cards and out-jog them. So here again, the little finger and the forefinger can easily feel and control the in-jogged and the out-jogged card. Now we form a break below the in-jog and undercut at the out-jog. The left forefinger moves the out-jog card a little to the left. This enables the right middle finger to lift both portions. We shuffle off to the break and drop the rest on top. The lift shuffle is a very versatile variation of the overhand shuffle control, and that's how it looks. It's one shuffle and still we control the top stock. Now, first of all, the basic technique. We start like we start all overhand shuffle by pulling off at least the cards we need to control, in our case the 4 aces. In the next shuffle movement, we pull off the next block, but at the same time pick up the ace block and bring it back to the top in the last shuffle. There are a few important points here. First of all, it's important that these 3 fingers remain together at all times and for this angle of about 45 degrees. This will enable the fingers to perfectly cover from the front the real situation. So here's how it looks. It's a very simple thing now to continue with the shuffle until the break is reached and to throw on top the held back packet. Now the lift shuffle has various applications. This was like a top stock control. You can do the top and bottom stock control with a slight variation. Let's say you have cards on the bottom to control on the top. You start by lifting the top portion, and as you come towards the end, rather than dropping all the cards above the break on top of the pack, you drop them back on bottom and you drop the lifted on top. So it's a one run through overhand shuffle that controls simultaneously the top and the bottom block. You can use it as a control. For instance, I shuffle the cards and ask the spectator to say stop. He selects it, puts it back as I shuffle off about a quarter. Let me turn this card back so you can see. In this case, he's picked the 7 of hearts. I do a gesture like that with the side of the finger. I square the upper side, immediately pick up and continue the shuffle, which effectively delivers the card to the top. Another application is if you want to inverse certain cards. Let's say you have these 3 cards on the tap, 2, 7, 10, and you need them in order 10, 7, 2. Nothing easier than that. The lift shuffle does it almost automatically. Run 3 cards, 1, 2, 3, pick them up and throw them back on top, and the cards have been reversed. You can cull cards. That is, if you know that cards are at the specific positions in the pack. Let's say I have them at 4 and at 3. I only need to do 1, 2, 3. At 4, I lift the indifferent cards. Then as I proceed, I drop the cards and shuffle another 2, lift the whole block and drop everything on top as I proceed. This effectively delivers them to the bottom. Now let's look at a few ways of overhand shuffling the card while maintaining the whole order of the pack. The GW Hunter shuffle retains the order of the entire deck. I have a deck here in new deck order. Here's how the shuffle looks. You're back in the same order. So here how it works. I undercut about half the pack, run 5, 6 cards. In our case, I'm going to do 5 cards, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then I do something we've seen already before. I drop all the cards except the last few and in-jog them in the last movement. I undercut at the in-jog, run the originally run 5 cards back, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and drop the rest on top. Now, you can use a little bit longer run if you like 7 cards, and stop in between, making a comment, like say doing 1, 2, 3, 4. They say something, do another 3, and then do the in jog, have a little pause, go back. Now do 5 and 2 maybe, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Make a little comment and go like 2, and drop the cards. And still, even though we don't need it, in-jog the bottom card. So if somebody watched you before and saw that some cards were out of alignment, now they see the same thing, but when we square the deck, they're going to be lost, and people will think, oh, he just shuffled carelessly. So that's the GW Hunter Shuffle. Very effective way of controlling the cards. The optical shuffle is a very deceptive shuffle. And if you look at this, even if I do it in slow motion, it will be very convincing. You can do it fast, you can do it very slowly. Still, the deck has been retained in perfect order. So here's what it is. You never let go of the cards. Basically, you're just moving the cards, the hands up and down in a shuffle movement. We're imitating this shuffle gestalt, but nothing happens. Now, how can this deceive an intelligent person? Different aspects help. First of all, the left thumb movement. The left thumb moves as if it was peeling cards. So we have this movement here, the left of the left thumb. The right hand, that's very important. There is a tendency to stiffen at this point. And of course, it's important to keep this dynamics, which we already looked at in the normal overhand shuffle. So really keep this dynamic. The third aspect is the noise. The noise that the cards make when the upper packet strikes the top of the lower packet and goes up. So we combine now the three, the thumb movement, the dynamics and the sound. And to this we add a fourth element, which is the picking off of the card. It's just automatic. It happens by friction. When the lower edge of the right hand packet hits the top of the lower packet, when you go up, it's going to pull up a few cards, which, thanks to the law of gravity, will fall down again. So here's the action. And you can do this very slowly, or you can do this fast. It looks very, very convincing. Now, if you do it the way I just did it now, you're constantly cutting the cards. So on the cyclical order of the deck is maintained. So, very good. I was lucky. I just cut at the right spot. But if you want to really keep the top on the top and the bottom on the bottom without having to cut, which is of course an option you have. If you have a crimped card or whatever, you can just shuffle and shuffle and shuffle and shuffle again, and that when you stop, you just cut at the crimp. So if you don't want to do that, here is what you can do. You start the optical shuffle, and at some point after like 6 or 7 shuffle movements, you drop all the cards except the bottom few, you in-jog them as we saw, and now you either repeat the shuffle, doing it a second time, or you let the deck glide into dealing position and you simply cut. I think that's a very deceptive way of doing it. Just do the shuffle a little bit, do this and follow up with a cut. You really have this shuffle gestalt, which is the accepted way of doing this, shuffling and then cutting it to the table. I mean, that's what people are used to, and it's going to deceive everybody. Here's the Greek shuffle. I first encountered this idea in one of the great classics of the 20th century, Greater Magic. Now, here is how it looks. It imitates a shuffle, which is especially used in Europe. Many people in Europe still shuffle cards like this. And all it does, it cuts the deck, like the optical shuffle. It retains the cyclical order of the pack and cuts it up somewhere. Now, here's how to operate it. We undercut half the cards, but as we undercut, pull up some cards from behind the left-hand packet. Keep them by pressure of the left fingers, and now drop the cards from the right hand, but retain a few on the bottom. Now go back, re-seize the cards that have been up, and push them down. So the idea is this. And of course you have to simulate a little bit resistance, because what we are really trying to imitate is that these cards are being cut into the others. So you have this sort of dynamics that we want to imitate. Now all these false shuffles of course have to be done without looking at them and while you speak, and as long as the shuffle movements, the external reality of it looks more or less like an acceptable shuffle, nobody will doubt that you are doing really what you pretending to do. I just did all 3 shuffles in a row, the Greek shuffle, the optical shuffle, and GW Hunter shuffle. Well, often when I perform, people will come up and say, well, I know you must have the cards up your sleeve. Yes? Did you? Well, you've seen quite a bit of things. Did you think I have cards up my sleeve or no?
Nope.
No, not really.
I did a little.
Well, yeah.
I thought
Well,
you
actually, he's right, because I have aces up my sleeve. Yes, like the gamblers. But I'm very honest, I don't have them in the sleeve. I have them on the sleeve. Now, they're face down, you can't see them. Well, let me demonstrate. Let's say I'm taking 8 of spades, okay? It doesn't matter which card it is. And take maybe 10 of hearts, okay? If I take the 8 of spades and just, with the 8 of spades, I pick up the ace of spades. You see? You didn't see it? Of course, that was one ace over here, but I have a second ace which is over there. It takes a little time until it sticks. Now it sticks. Do you see? Ace of clubs. Now, if you do like this, you know what happens? There's a lot of hot air. Yes, and if it's very hot, it's very hot, the cards turn red.
What the heck?
Yes, it's true. I'm watching from behind, so I can see that. Now, of course, you wonder, where are the 2 black aces? Well, they're going back up my sleeve. So I have to shake them out. Look, shake, comes out. But don't shake too hard, otherwise you have a hard time catching it.
I like that one.
Yeah. You want to check my sleeves? Aces off, the cuff inspires itself from different sources. First of all, of Al Leach's 2 hands for aces, then Marlowe's Casanova card trick, and Earl Nelson's sleeve aces. Now, here is how it works. We need the 4 aces, a little setup, which can be done impromptu. And here is an excellent idea by Earl Nelson in his sleeve aces from his excellent book Variations, how to do that, with a little additional idea by Richard Follmer. And we will see a little later what this does. So it's very easy to remember. We have the 2 red aces with 1 indifferent in between. We have the 2 black aces with 1 indifferent in between. And I always put the ace of spades on the bottom, because that's then going to be the last ace to appear. Now, once this is being done, it can't be done casually. I spread the cards. You take 2, yes, the ace and the indifferent card, in our case it's the 7 of diamonds. Flip the deck over on top of it. Flip the remaining 3 cards on top of all, and transfer cut the top 2 cards to the bottom. So if you look at this again, you will be able to arrive at this setup, which I'll resume briefly for you. On top is the ace of spades, the rest of the card, and on bottom we have a red ace faced by another red ace, faced by an indifferent card, 7, the ace of clubs, the other black ace, and an indifferent card to protect the setup from the bottom. So from here I can go. The card can be spread, and I use, like we explained in the technical section, the overhand shuffle control, controlling the bottom and the top stock at the same time. And I end this by slip cutting the top card into about the center of the pack. So I drop the rest on top, maintain a break, step at the break, and leave the whole thing on the table for a moment while I make my introductory remark, while I introduce the presentational plot. Now I pick up the whole deck and regain the break at the step. And you can see that. as we explained in the technical section. Just pull down on the step and you bring the break. I show the first card, yes, on the bottom of the right-hand packet. And this intuitively tells the spectator I'm going to show the bottom card of the other packet. So this showing the bottom card is going to be the main action. And in this main action, I'm going to steal a card on the face of this packet. So here it's done. The moment I direct the attention on the face card, the left little finger is able to obtain a break below the top card. And as the card goes, it's one action, goes and do this in slow motion, goes on top, steals the card, immediately goes beneath it and flips it over. Now, that's the main action, flipping it over. The stealing is an in-transit action and thereby goes unnoticed. Now I miscall the 8 because I already have the ace, so I miscall. I say, and if I touch with the 8, I can pick up the first ace, which is the ace, and that's where I have the next attention drawn on. Yes, the people are going to look at the ace, and this will give me a chance to obtain a break beneath the face indifferent card, which protects the next black ace. So you want to avoid that the ace flashes when you pick up the break, so you can either turn the hand a little bit inward, yes, do the kind of a pronation of the left hand, or use the Vernon technique, which we looked at the beginning of Card College 1, which doesn't expose the index. Now, in a further in-transit action, let's see how this is going to work. I need to pick up this 4 of heart on the back of this packet. So let's go step by step. I will say, oh, that was the, and I hesitate for a moment, yes, to introduce, or to give the spectators the idea I'm going to introduce an action. This was the first card, so that's a major action. So the first card, which came from over here. Now I follow my eye with the finger, I come back with the finger, I keep the eye, yes, and but there is a second one, which is over there. And I follow with the eye, and the spectator following the gesture and follows the eye. I go down still, keeping the gaze over here, flip over the packet here, and immediately go over there. So the ace has been freed because we've stolen the indifferent card. At that moment, I like to prepare for the next change, which is a color change. So I need to pick up a break beneath 3 cards from the face. It can be done in different ways, but the way I prefer is to thumb count at this point 3 cards. That the thumb count is perfectly protected because the hand is turned like so. And in the moment I turn it back, I do the transfer as we've looked at in the chapter Auxiliary Slides. I transfer the thumb break to the little finger. So now my left little finger holds a break between the 2 red aces. And I rub once, and I just rub about 2 or 3 inches above it. And when I've done it 2 or 3 times as an action of conditioned naturalness, I look up and look into spectator's eye saying, and this of course creates hot air. Yeah? And this is a little gag. It's a little gag, which relaxes the audience. I relax myself, go down and pick up the 3 cards and come back. And when the audience looks back again, the black ace, in the ideal case, has visually transformed into red ace. Immediately I turn over the other packet, revealing the transformation of both black aces into red aces. Now here comes in the nice touch of Richard Follmer, where we have inserted an extra card. We can really thumb off the aces and the audience sees 2 indifferent cards. Now flip both packets down and make sure that the right packet that has on the bottom the black aces goes beneath the one on the left. Now here's the configuration we are at this moment. We have an indifferent card on the bottom protecting the 2 black aces which are faced. So now comes the revelation of the last 2 aces. Let's a problem with every trick that has repetition, how to stage the third and the fourth phase. Because the first time you do something, people will say, oh, that was interesting, do it again. Then you do it the second time and people say, oh, he can really do it. And the third time, the attention starts to drop. So there are different strategies we have seen already and we are going to see in this course to overcome this. Now, one of them is to change the rhythm, change the pacing. The first two were produced very slowly and magically, and now I speed up, I go boom, boom. And here's what happens. I transfer cut the bottom two cards, so I first need to obtain a break above them, which I do by double buckling the bottom two cards. Do a double buckle on the bottom two cards, which allows me to take. I do the first action of a transfer cut, of a double cut actually, and I put it on the bottom. I steal the two cards from beneath the right hand packet, immediately turn over as if I was shaking the ace out of the sleeve. Yes, that's the idea. I say, oh, but now they are inside my sleeve. Go like this, it comes out, and while I thumb off the third ace, this covers the action of the right hand, which is sort of a side glide. Yeah? What happens is I just need to separate the ace of spades, the last ace, from the rest of the cards. So here is the action. It's similar to the glide where the right hand holds the sides, only that now you have the packet in end grip. So you go like this, and this is the gap where the left hand goes in and flips the card out. So here's how it looks. And the last ace, you don't shake too much, otherwise you have a hard time catching it. This is one of the oldest techniques, and maybe one of the most useful techniques in the repertoire of the card magician. It's a classic force. 52 cards. So would you please be so kind as to take a card, any card you like, go ahead. And we hopefully have forced the ace of spades. There we are. So let's look at the preparation and the execution of the classic force. It starts out on the top. I perform an in-jog shuffle. I take about a good third, in-jog the next card and shuffle off. Now, a little delay takes place. I put it on the table, so I'm prepared to pick it up at any time and obtain a break above it. I say something to the spectator, introduce the plot of the trick, whatever is important at that moment. As I do, my left hand takes up the deck. In a squaring action, I obtain a break above the force card. Now, the force card is below the break, about 2/3 down in the deck. I start spreading the cards and tell the spectator what to do. I say, sir, would you please take a card? Now, as Roberto said, it's a good ploy to say take a card rather than to say select a card, which suggests ample freedom. Also, I think the important thing is that it is an imperative. Take a card. Sir, please take a card. Now I start the spread and the spectator starts to approach, and when he is very close and maybe already has made up his mind which card he likes to take, I spread a little further. So he gets in a little bit of a stress because I need to take a card before it's finished. And when I'm just under his finger, I will lift the spread side lightly so that he comes to touch the back of the force card. And one very important thing, as soon as he's touched the card, he has not yet grabbed it, but I continue the spread. And this is a very interesting feeling for the spectator because the card swims in the spread. This really does not only convey visually that it is a free choice, also by the sense of touch. He will have the idea, well, the magician has no control over the cards. It's a very convincing moment, and I withdraw the spread, and of course the spectator will normally withdraw his hand and look at the card, and we have successfully forced the card. Let me turn the card face up now so that you can see the procedures. I take this up. Sir, would you please be so kind and take a card, any card you like. There you go. Thank you very much. Now it's very important that while spreading the deck, there is no discernible separation at the point where the break is being held. Very often we see this. We see this. And of course that's very obvious. The spectator also see this, and an intelligent spectator will be suspicious if afterwards you're giving him or he's taking this card because he's already seen it to begin with. Now there are a few aspects besides the exact mechanics, the fingering, which are very important. There's a psychological aspect and different way of handling the spectator. Now I already mentioned one. Another one to to manage the situation is to address another spectator first and say, "Sir, would you please be so kind and take a card?" And I start spreading like a third. Then I suddenly turn away from him and say, "No, maybe you do something later. Sir, would you like to take a card?" At this point, of course, he's surprised. Half the pack has already been spread, and he's in a sort of necessity to take the card, which is, of course, very helpful to do that. "Sir, would you take a card?" "Oh, no, maybe you take a card. Go ahead. Please, go ahead." And we've successfully forced from indifferent cards, of course, yes. Another few psychological aspects. Descartes, in his book, The Testament of Jérôme Sharp, 1786, already says, don't force a card, don't classic force a card at the beginning of your act. Wait until people are convinced that you are really able to do everything. Also, it's the moment people will like you, hopefully, and also respect your competence. That's the moment they will decrease their attention. They will say, "Oh, this person can do anything." And that's a good psychological moment to use the classic force. Let me mention an aspect which is important with the execution of every technique, and that is what happens in our own minds as the performers when we execute some secret move. That we're always under a certain stress, maybe a fear that it won't work. This is true especially for the classic force, because if we fail, what do? Now there's various ways to handle that. I like to use the term the inner game from the title of Timothy Galway's book, The Inner Game of Tennis. We need self-confidence and assurance that this is going to work. The more sure we are that it's going to work, the more probable it is that it will. So how do we do that? Now, first of all, we can try to force a card whenever it is not necessary. So whenever we need to have a card selected, ask a spectator, "Please take a card," and just try to force it. Now, if it doesn't succeed, if it doesn't work, nothing happens. If it does work, you remember that. Now you do this for weeks, for months, and you will have accumulated a set of experience which helps the self-confidence. Another way to do it is by using mental practice. It's very hard to practice the classic force physically, but it's easy to practice it mentally. So at any time, just close your eyes, relax, and imagine you doing the force for a normal audience, and imagine it working. Therefore, it's very important to believe that the force is going to succeed. Now, here's one of several ways to practice the classic force when you're at home, you don't have a spectator. Just use a pile of books. Obviously, it only works if you have card college. Now, go a little back and say, "Sir, would you please be so kind as to take a card?" Go ahead and force the card into the page of a book. Hopefully force the correct card. Good. "Sir, would you please be so kind and just take a card you like?" And just stick the card there. So you get a little bit of feeling, especially if you want to stand up and walk a longer distance towards the books as you would use in a platform on a stage application, but also for close-up, as I've just illustrated here. Now, a most important aspect that will give you a lot of the confidence needed for the correct and successful execution of the classic force is to know what to do if the force fails. We call these outs. Now, here are several ways to proceed. There are outs which can be used directly, immediately, and there are ways around it. Let's look at the out which we can use directly. I say to my spectator, "Please take a card," and the spectator takes the wrong card. Now, as soon as I see that he takes the wrong card, well, I withdraw the cards, and I will say, "Oh, excuse me, sir, I just saw the card." I just pretend that I saw the card. Don't show me the card. Then a very similar strategy is when the spectator takes the card, he will usually grab it and look at them. And I say, no, oh, sorry, that's my mistake. I should have told you. You must not look at the card. And now there are two ways to go. And that depends on the judgment I make. If I judge that I made a mistake in timing, but have a very friendly spectator, I immediately reforce the card. So I try it again. If my judgment, on the other hand, is that I have picked an antagonistic spectator who on purpose waits a little longer and he says, oh, I want another card, then I will change the procedure of forcing and use, for instance, the riffle force, which we're going to look at in just a minute. Another way to proceed is if he got the wrong card, which is very close to my card. Let me turn over the card so we can see it. Let's assume he takes one or two, a card very close to it. I say, yes, and take a few cards, go ahead. And I'm going to give him 2 or 3 or 4 cards, and then I will shuffle them around, of course, keeping track of the cards, and we'll use an equivoque force or some other procedure to get the card. Now, yet another way to manage the mistake of the spectator is whenever he takes the wrong card, just do another trick. Now, one thing we can always use, we can use the force cards, which is controlling with the little finger, as a key card. So we can look at the card and then ask him, please put the card back. We spread to the force card and let him put it either on top or below it. And we have a key card with which we can control his card a little later. There are quite a few tricks which fit the issue very well in this Card College DVDs. For instance, the question is, remember? Yes? Or proceed as follows. Immediately tell him, turn over the card, please. We're going to use your card to find the card. Now I have a card peeked at over here. Control it to the bottom by means of the past peek overhand shuffle. Now the second spectator's card is over here. I start a Hindu shuffle and ask you to stop whenever you like. Say stop.
Stop.
You put it in face up. I drop the rest, or as we've learned in the Hindu shuffle chapter, take the bottom cards and then drop it on top. And now I will be able to reveal his card having mysteriously located the card which was previously thought of. You're actually going to see a performance of this short piece in the performance section. Another possible out is as soon as a spectator takes the wrong card, say, look at the card, separate the card, bring it to the top, and now use a top change, which you're going to look a little bit later when you put the card beneath an object or whatever, and you top change it against the correct card. Or, to go to a simple strategy, as soon as you get the wrong card, bring the force card to the top, and now use the crisscross force in such a way by saying, please turn the card over. Now, put it anywhere into the pack, wherever it pleases you. I'm going to cut the pack, yes, exactly here. Are you sure? Yes? Okay, let me put it over here. Now, I say something, I put a positive insertion there, then I go back and say, remember, sir, you have put your card somewhere into the pack. Please look at the card at this point, and I forced the card on him with the crisscross force. While the classic force carries a certain amount of risk, the next one is a surefire force. It's a riffle force, 52 cards. Please say stop whenever it pleases you, while I run down my thumb like that. Stop there. Good. I separate it, I look away. Please take the card, and it's the ace of spades, our force card. That's the riffle force. And here's how we operate it. Top card is the force card. We chuck off about a third of the pack, in-jog the next card, shuffle off, and that's the same preparation as we've already seen in the classic force. It's very important, in my opinion, to separate in time the cause of the force and the force itself, rather than looking at the card, glimpsing the card, performing the pass or cutting the deck, and then immediately going into the action. So whenever I'm ready to do the force, I pick up the deck. I can now, at this point, do what you saw me do before. Just take some of the cards above the in-jog and dribble them on top, which of course will leave the in-jog cut undisturbed. But this affords a nice reason for the right hand to come over the deck and apparently square the cards. What really happens is that the right thumb picks up on the in-jog card, pushes it in, lifts everything to elevated dealing position, and thus nicely obtains a break that can be taken over by the left little finger. Now once here, I start the forcing procedure, which starts with a riffling action. I riffle down with my left thumb, and of course I want to get as near as possible to the break point. It doesn't matter whether the spectator stops you before or after, but let's assume he stops you after, which is a little bit easier, especially to explain the concept. Once you've got the concept, you can do what you like. Now here it is. I riffle down, spectator says stop. Now here comes a very nice action by a German friend of mine, Rainer Teschner from Nuremberg. Instead of separating the deck at this point, which is the usual procedure with the riffle force, and that's the moment, of course, the audience will look, because they just gave you a command, stop. Now they want to look what happened if you're going to do something. And that's exactly the 2 seconds it takes to delay the actual execution, the actual cut at the break. So what we do is to take the middle finger and hold it about parallel like that, and really insert the outer phalange of the finger and slide it all along. This technique has been widely adopted in the past 10 years since card college appeared, and I most of the time I see it done wrong. People go out with the finger much too quickly. The finger slides all the way. It slides all the way until it touches the right corner. And at that moment, several things happen. First of all, the right hand goes and grabs the card above the break. Now, in order to do that automatically, the middle finger, gets out of the break. At the same time, I will turn my head, which is an additional misdirection. And then the right hand will grab all the cards above the break. So here's how it looks. Here, sir, please take the card. Now, as the left hand is extended, again, several actions are coordinated. First of all, the forward movement, while the right hand remains absolutely motionless. You don't move around. The right hand remains motionless. It's only the left hand. Second, the thumb spreads to the left. Again, body language saying it's very open. It's exactly here. And the third thing is that the cards slightly slide forward and to the right, which creates a nice bevel. Now that's what the large-scale illusionists use to conceal the thick bottom of the bases. They use an optical principle to make it look thinner. Now look, if I use the packet squared like that, you will see its actual thickness. Whereas if you use a bevel towards the end and towards the side, you cannot really estimate how many cards you're holding. So this is very helpful in case the spectator really says stop like 10 cards, more or less. So it's impossible for the spectator to judge, did he exactly cut at that spot, or is it less or is it more? Let me show you with the card face up. This Ace of Spades on top. We shuffle it about a third down into the deck, pick up the break, and now ask for the spectator to say stop. This case, we go a little bit beyond the break. When the right hand picks up the upper packet, all the cards above the break, the left thumb slightly releases its pressure, which will easily allow those cards which are, above the spot you stop the riffle to coalesce with those below the spot. And you stretch out and also pull up the card like this. This is please take the card like this. So if the spectator says stop before the break, well, it's very similar. You do the same action here, and as the right hand grabs the upper packet, it will be lowered. The left thumb releases the pressure, and we come at about the same situation. So it's important that the left thumb, at the moment it starts to move to the left, at the moment the left hand starts to move to the left, releases its pressure, and whether you are above or below the break doesn't matter. You either add or take away the cards, and you end up doing that. Of course, you must be careful that at the outer end this won't be seen. This is about decisions. I mean, there are easy decisions and difficult decisions in life. You buy a wrong car, easy decision. You sell it, buy another one. You get married and have children, difficult decision. You know, you can't go back. So last week I was in Florence, had an easy decision. I bought this little thing because I'm interested with everything that has to do with playing cards. It has these beautiful playing card symbols. Yes. Well, let me try an experiment. And I'm going to ask you to take the deck, please. Yes. That's not a decision I just told you.
Okay.
But now you are about to make a decision. You're going to deal cards face down. Go ahead. Exactly. What? In a pile. Yeah, put them. Okay, so wait. And you can shuffle the cards in between.
Okay.
Or you can decide not to shuffle
I'm
them.
going to give a little shuffle.
Yeah, all right. Whatever. Yes, go ahead. And continue dealing.
Okay.
Yes. Now you can deal from the center if you like, or from the bottom. Yes. That's your decision, of course.
I'm doing it.
Yeah. And you decide to stop whenever it pleases.
I'm going to stop now.
Sure.
Yeah.
You can go a little bit more
No,
if you
I'm
like.
just- that's
you
what I
sure?
want, yeah.
Good. Your decision. Very good. Now sometimes you have just to decide between two things. Yeah. You keep the stock, you sell it. Shall you go vacation or not? You know, yes, no makes big differences. So let's create a yes and no. I'm going to actually we can just have two piles. I mean, I don't know how many cards. Well, I could have counted them. I didn't. I could know when you stopped. I could know in what order the cards are. Yes, I can't know all that. Now, you make a decision whether you want this card or that card. And that's the card we're going to take. Decide now, take your finger and say this card or that card.
This card.
Sure. Now, normally in life, you cannot come back on the decisions. You know, I would like sometimes to be able to come back. But in the theater of the magician, you can. I'm going to give you magical 7 seconds to either stay with your choice or change it. Keep your finger on your choice for the moment. Which one is it? This one. Okay. Now start 7 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You stay or change?
Yeah, stay.
You're sure? Mm-hmm. So turn it over. Had you 4 clubs? Had you dealt more cards, you probably stop at another card, right? Mm-hmm. Had you chosen the other packet, you have other cards, correct? Now let me show you what I have in this little box. Well, it's it's playing cards. Yeah. It's also 52 playing cards. And they're exactly the same cards which exist in the deck, yes, are over here. Correct? And you have the...
4 of clubs.
And you didn't want to change?
No.
No. Well, maybe you're lucky. Sometimes it's better not to change, you know. Let me see, the 4. Now let me show you something. All the cards have a red back, right? To contrast them with the other cards. Mm-hmm. And that is the only card that I had marked. I mean, you can look at them. It's no chemical, nothing. It's the only card.
That is awesome.
Which, Anna, shows you picked the correct decision.
That's right.
And it's a good sign because for the rest of your life, you have the potential for always taking the right decisions.
Great news.
That's very good. X marks the spot is essentially Max Maven's prediction, which you can find in the Prism books, the colored books of mentalism, fantastic series of mental tricks by Max Maven. We use this here with his kind permission. And it illustrates yet another way of forcing one card or several cards, as we're going to see in just a minute. We require a normal deck of cards in operation, plus a miniature deck, which has a little preparation. The little preparation is the following. We put on one card, and in my case I take the 2 of hearts, we put a cross, a big cross, but made a cross in such a way that when the miniature cards are spread, it doesn't immediately become obvious. Yes, so we avoid the edges. And on the back, we have another card which is marked, and that's the 4 of clubs. So that's going to give us a 2-way out at the moment the climax of the trick occurs. So for the time being, this is set aside. So I suggest you review the presentation again to see the connection and the whole staging. Let me just give you briefly the technical details. The 2 cards to be forced are on top of the deck, and that's the clever idea of Al Leach. We can false shuffle the deck in any way as long as we keep the 2 relevant cards on top. Now everything from this point on can be done by the spectator itself. You can combine it like I did in the presentation when I do a part because I thought I had to speed it up a little bit, or you can let the spectator do all the actions. You will be the judge as soon as you understand how this works exactly. So the spectator is asked to deal cards, and as soon as the spectator has dealt the first 2 cards, the force has worked. Now here comes a little subtlety by Ray Goulet, who then says you can take cards from the center or from the bottom. To this I added you can shuffle the cards, which I think is very nice. Yes? You can even make a running gag out of that. Each time the spectator has put down 2 or 3 cards, you can stop, reshuffle the cards. She puts down a few other, stop, reshuffle the cards. Whatever way, the idea is at the end spectators have to be convinced that they could have taken as many cards as they like, and they could be any cards, and you can really emphasize the point because you can see you could have taken more cards, it's true. You could have taken any cards, it's true, and I can't know the order of the cards, and all of that is true. But it doesn't matter because the only thing we need to have is the bottom 2 cards. So the presentation I've chosen for this is with the decisions, the yes and the no. In my opinion, is a good idea to justify that we now have to deal these cards that have been selected into 2 piles. Now again, this can be done by the spectator, or I can do it myself. Now, regardless how many cards there are, odd or even, doesn't matter. If you distribute the cards like that, you're going to end up with 1 card on top of one packet and the other one on top of the other packet. And it doesn't even matter which one it is. You don't have to remember anything. So this is entirely automatic. Now comes the staging, yes, the dramatization of the selection. And you can review that in the presentation, the performance section. Anyway, the spectator ends up with one of them. The only thing you have to do is remember which card has the cross on the back and which one has it on the face. Now, in a particular case, I make my life very, very easy. I take the first 2 cards of the Tamariz mnemonic stack. It's 4 of clubs and 2 of hearts. So I always know these are the 2 cards. And I put the spot on the face of the red card because it contrasts better the black mark with the red than if it was on the 4. So by looking at the card, I know exactly if it's the 2, the cross is on the face. If it's the 4, it's on the back. Now all that remains to do is to dramatically disclose the card. So it's important to show the deck first from one side, then show that all the cards appear on the other side. Yes, so like this. And accordingly, in this case, I would take out the 4. Actually, the 4 is even a little better than the 2 because you can first pull it out, turn over the whole spread, emphasize that all the cards are just what they seem to be, and then disclose the cross. Now, this is the climax. And it's important to wait for a moment and just give a few cards to the audience, because the only solution they're really going to have at this point is that they somehow prepared so that a cross can appear on the back of any card. Just by doing that, just remember where the 2 of hearts is, right? Which is about here. So you don't want to give them the 2 of hearts, otherwise they go, ah. And so that's X marks the spot. Great. Anna, may I kindly ask you to take any card from this pack? Go ahead, take any card. Very good. Turn it over, please. Okay. Turn it over. We have 51 cards left, and I would like you to think of one in just a second. Now, don't think of an easy card, like Ace of Hearts or 7. Actually, here's what I do. This is 51 potential thoughts, and I'm going to flip through them so you can think of, a very unusual card. Neither one of us would even think of, thinking. So go ahead. Say stop when I pleases you.
Stop.
Okay. Look at the card. Yes?
Yep.
Now keep this locked in your mind because it's going to be an important card. Now we have a card which is also important, but we know. Yours, we don't. You don't know it, I don't know it, I swear it's true. But maybe this card can do something. Maybe. Would you be so kind and just say stop whenever I shuffle the cards like that?
Stop.
Doc, put the card face up in it, please. Yes. And you could have stopped me later. You would have put it here. Or a little later, we'll put it here. Or earlier. I don't know. Your decision. Think of your card. Don't forget it.
Okay.
Now, you have sort of abstractly taken a card by, you looked at it and then you're thinking, but you have really done it. You've taken a card. Well, sometimes it happens that if somebody does something, it coincides with the thing another person thinks. Did you know each other before you came here?
Yeah.
Yes.
That explains everything. Because look. I'm going to see, you introduce it here, are you agree? I don't do anything, just with the tips of my fingers I separate to make this clear. Now, this is the card next to the card you have. What was your card?
King of clubs.
King of clubs. Here's a match, maybe the beginning of a romantic story.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, if the cards say so, then yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the cards don't lie.